And so is
Yeah.
there a piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
Just not be so hard on myself. I think I was really very I don't know. I think I was too caught up in a lot of different priorities when I should have just I mean, I don't know. I felt a huge sense of release when I left where I was from because in my mind, whether it was real or not, in my mind, I had pressure at home and with my social groups
Mhm.
in Canada, whether they existed or not is irrelevant. I felt so much pressure
Mhm.
socially and culturally to be a certain type of person. And going to San Francisco and being able to just focus on what I wanted to do for me and not giving a shit about, I don't know, what these girls are going to think of me or what these guys are going to think of me or like just not caring was such a huge release. And being able to start fresh um, as a young adult, I was 23 when I moved to San Francisco, being able to start fresh and meet a whole bunch of new people and just be who I wanted to be without any like baggage,
Mhm.
that was amazing. And I just, if anyone gets the opportunity to do that and really explore who they are and just go after something, I highly recommend it because you can really just, yeah, you can just, it feels good. So if I was giving myself a piece of advice, I would just probably put a little less pressure on myself. Know that things come with time and you just have to put in the work and not stress about the people who don't like you. It's going to happen no matter what.
Really wise words
Yeah.
and so true. And I'm really glad that that new beginning was really refreshing and helped because
Yeah.
it opens up so much opportunity, but it's something that also takes a lot of courage to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It was important for me to do that.
Thank you for sharing that. So, moving into our exciting news segments, it's for the community to hear about what you're working on from the creator yourself. So, could you share with us some pieces that you're working on now? Either show us, or you can talk about them too, or just things that you're brainstorming.
Uh, excuse me. Yeah. So I just finished a huge body of work for the museum, right? So there was a period between that install, which happened in February, and now where I just like, I had, I kind of, well, I guess I didn't, but I had probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 commissions that were queued up immediately to start after I finished that work. So I had a solo show last winter, yeah, right before the museum from November through the first week of January that I had built out. So there was this period of time between like last July and February where I was working like a maniac to develop these 2 exhibitions, these 2 solo exhibitions. So during that time and right after my solo show at the gallery in Uptown, you know, the work that had sold, there was a lot of pieces in there that I could have sold multiple times over. And so people were cherry picking and say, hey, I want this. Can I get another one that looks like this? Can I commission one that looks like this? Can I get something like that that's in a different size? So I essentially didn't have the capacity to do that work right after the show ended because I was working on the museum show that was opening like 2 weeks after the other one closed or whatever. So, so I was trying to flush all that out, and then I was queuing up all my commissions to happen immediately after I opened my show at the museum in February. So for the past 3 or 4 months, I've just been working on commissions, which is a totally different creative headspace than working on new work, because you're not trying to work backwards, but you're trying to like reperform certain things, and it's almost like researching your work and then trying to write a paper on it. So it's like you look at your old work and you're like, okay, and all I have is the images now because the work's gone. So I'm like, okay, like get in that headspace. What's really focused, like what's happening in this work that people are attracted to, trying to understand what it was, what the essence was that they were even into, and then trying to execute on that. So commissions are just a gnarly experience. So I've been working on that, just commissions back to back to back since February. So So those I've been kind of working through. I have two left, one of which I started yesterday in the studio, and one of which I just dropped off at the frame shop to get framed and then shipped out. So I can show you guys the ones I'm working on right now. So it's this blue vertical canvas, oh my God, here. And kind of the way the production works for this particular work is I create washes on top of the rock. Well, I build it first of all. So I build the canvas, stretch it. I always build my own just because I don't like the look and feel of store-bought canvases. They're also really expensive. So building my own is a way for me to control not only what it looks like, but control the expenses. So I build and stretch the canvas. For me, something that's become a big part of my work is showing the actual canvas through the work, as a way to not only build up visual depth, but also kind of get this organic feeling of what, like, of the painting and the actual canvas. So my first step for this work was doing a wash. Oh my God, this is really tricky. Yes, so kind of like this blue wash, and it's really translucent because it's being mixed with clear gesso and water. So kind of like building up this energy, getting a lot of movement, but it's really subtle, it's really soft, and kind of just setting up the surface. The solo show that I had in the fall was called Hair Flip, and it was all about sort of these big, heavy drip paintings that had these sort of like figurative subjects in a way. So this painting right here, this is called Hair Flip, and it was sort of because I had done this drip painting where you can kind of see this figure, and she's kind of like throwing her, wait, my finger, I'm trying to figure out my finger, hair back. So like, so in these drip paintings, essentially, and this one's kind of helpful to see too, I prepare the background and then I do these transparent drips on top of the canvas. And they're transparent because this gives me the most control over the color that I'm going to layer over them. So this commission that I'm working on right now, I've got the background wash, which is going to be interesting. Today I'm going to do the transparent drips, which will kind of be like building out the composition of the work. And then afterwards, I'll spray paint and add all the color at the end. So your finished product, this one is kind of like an in-between. You can see these transparent drips have in some cases they look tan, and that's just the canvas coming through it. And in the other areas they look white, and that's from white airbrush spray paint to make it look like it's glowing. So, and then you can see like this is the color that the washes that I had under it. So this is like a good kind of in-between painting to show the process. And then eventually it'll kind of build up more like that. And then at the very end, it'll build up more like this. So that's sort of what I'm working on in the studio today. And then you can see this painting behind me has tons of color and lots of drips and crazy things going on. So part of what I'm trying to do is build up from this process that I just described to you guys. I'm trying to use a lot more colors, a lot more paint, and figure out different types of surfaces. So I'm kind of also in this experimental phase of working with different palettes, darker palettes, more vibrant palettes, and just more bold mark making. So I have so in the midst of me working on my commissions, I also have this work, which is obviously really, really colorful behind me and lots of stuff going on. And then this really dark, crazy work that I need to work through. But they kind of act as sketchbook pages where while I'm working on a really controlled thing like a commission where I need to be really focused and I need to be really on my game, these other things happening in the studio can be a nice little thing that I can go and scribble on or go and test something on or whatever. So that's really practical for me when I'm working, is having a canvas or having something where I can very, very quickly test on what does this color look like? What does this color look like on the other one? How does this line work? How does this texture work? And I don't figure those things out on commissioned works or on works that I'm working on for a show. Those works are super controlled. I had canvases that exist purely for the experimental things. Once I figure out how I want my mark to look, then I move to the other thing and then I try and replicate it. So It's this balance of really controlled canvases and completely like, yeah, sketchbook canvases, which are like, free for all.
Amazing. Thanks for
Yeah,
sharing that. And it's really cool
yeah,
to see. And so, looking at your paintings, I can see a lot of layers. And so, you also talk about your process where you kind of go backwards and forwards in time, revisiting previous pieces.
yeah.
And so, is there any correlation to that? Or, like, how is your process like when you're adding these layers?
There's definitely, I think for me, figuring out good color compositions is tough. So looking back at my work and really figuring out how I made a palette feel united or feel like, yeah, that's working is just helpful. It reminds me. I mean, I feel like every time I paint, I forget stuff and need to remember like, okay, you need a neutral. Okay, you need some cool colors. You need some warm colors. And it sounds really elementary, and it is, like reminding yourself of the basics of painting every time you work and having those visual examples around me is helpful. Having the physical thing to look at to remember is helpful because that's how my brain works. If I was able to just read a document on like how to make a painting, then that would be fine. If that's how I learn, but that's not how I learn. I'm visual, so for me, having pieces where I feel like they're complete to understand and constantly learn from and be like, okay, when I'm working through something, like, why isn't this working? Compare it to finished work and be like, what's different about these? What haven't I done yet? Did I do this differently this time? Why did I do that like that? And so it becomes this nice comparison thing, this push and pull, where I can help get my work in progress to that level, but then also push it beyond it and say, uh, okay, this is where I stopped last time. What happens when I go past it? Because people always want to know that. How do you know it's over? When do you know when to stop? Whatever. When you feel good about it, when you don't want to work on it anymore, is usually my answer. But sometimes you need to push past that to see what happens in your process, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't.
That sounds really exciting. I look forward to seeing that. And so, to end on a positive note, there's like a lot of pieces of inspiration that, like, even through this conversation today. And so, what's something that you're grateful for today?
Oh, I'm grateful for my health and my family's health, and that I have this space. Not everyone has the space to do something. So I mean, I'm lucky that I can be here and that I feel safe in my studio, and I mean that's a gift. So
For sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been
thank you
really
so much, Emily.
thank you. And also a big thanks to Kohei. Without him, this would not have been possible. So thank you both. Thanks so much for tuning in. We would love to hear your thoughts or questions. Please let us know in the comments and review section, and we'll try to cover it in the next sessions. If you enjoyed this content, please share and subscribe for more episodes. For latest updates, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Art Focus Exchanges.